The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Woohoo! It's been a week, it's been a month, it's been a little crazy, but we continue, we forge on. I know this is Autism Action, Awareness, and Advocacy Month here, but it always is. It's not just April, right? It just so happens that in April we have so many more events, so many different places to be. But that's a good thing, right? And then in May, we'll have fewer places to be, fewer places to go, but hopefully the awareness and the action and the advocacy and the acceptance will continue to flow in those months. But it's been a little nutty around here, and we continue the nuttiness today with some really important things that we want to be talking about. We are going to be with you live for the next 2 hours. We are going to be talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. So whether you're a parent with a child who's on the autism spectrum, you're a teacher with students in your classroom who are on the autism spectrum, you're an individual who's on the autism spectrum, any of those different things, whether you're a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle on the autism spectrum, we want you to be here and to get resources that can help you to get to the progress that you want to get to. That's really important, right? And ways that you can be watching the show, and many different ways that you can participate by telling us your questions, your suggestions, your answers, right? We don't want to leave that out. So she's reminding you right now that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a lot to do. I want you to check out our blog because we have a free download of a meditation right now for overwhelmed parents. We've got one that's coming to you in the pipeline. We've already recorded it. That's a meditation just for kids so that they can reduce their anxiety. But right now, the one for the parents is up there. Download it for free. Share it with your friends. It's there for you. We'd love to get your feedback on it. But also on our website, you have the opportunity to watch the live show. You can click on that computer. There's a triangle on the computer. Click on that, and you can be watching us and interacting with us. To the side of that computer is a series of boxes. It says Shannon is answering right now, and then it says your question. That's your opportunity to interact with us, and that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not just open during the live show. You can put your cursor there if you're watching and you're seeing something and you go, I want more information about that, or I want further clarification, or I got to ask this question. I wish that Shannon had asked this, right? Because I can't think of everything. So put your cursor there, type away, put it whatever you want, hit enter, and it shows up here on the screen. Then I can address it during the next live show. Be as specific as possible. So I don't just say, well, when she said this, because I don't know which she you're talking about, right? So be as specific as possible, but know that I don't have any way of knowing who you are. It's completely anonymous. It's free. There's no login. We're not asking for any of your information. There's no credit card involved. Totally free. So I don't know who you are. And if you want me to get back to you, I can answer the question or have the expert answer the question on the live show. But if you want me to get back to you specifically, make sure that you put your email address or some other way of contacting you. I will not share that with the audience at home. Okay? So that can be private. All right. So all of those different ways you can participate with us. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and take on our jargon of the day. So stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. We're going to be working on identifying and labeling emotions. In February of last year, I know we did something super similar, but I promise you for this project, it's gonna be faster and easier because part of the project you'll be printing from our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live. Well, here's the rest of the materials you'll be needing. Templates, scissors, crayons, and tape. The first step you're gonna do is print the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have them right here, and I printed them double-sided. So now that I have all the pages printed out, I'm gonna hand it off to my kiddo to have them color it in. So while they're coloring the face, you can of course work on identifying colors, labeling features, staying in the lines, and of course, working on that pincer grasp. Once your child has finished coloring all the faces, you're going to take the pieces of paper and fold them in half. Once I have all the pages folded in half, I'm going to layer them together like a booklet. Now that I have them like this, I'm going to do is take my tape inside and kind of tape it together so they're bound together. If you have a stapler, you can do that too. Alright, now that this has been taped together, it looks like I have a book. So we're almost done with the project. All we need to do now is cut along the dotted line. Keep in mind, don't go all the way across to the edge or else it's going to be cut into thirds and it's not going to be a solid book anymore. The other thing in mind is, your kid can work on following a straight line while cutting, and if they can't do that, help them out. Alright, my booklet now has been cut up, and as you can see, I can now take a tab and flip it, and it'll change the look of the face. And what you can do is, ask your child how the emotion of the face changes based on what parts of the features you change. Well, I hope you had fun doing this activity with me, and until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it. I know for me, and I'm a parent who has a child on the autism spectrum, I'm not an expert in autism. And even though I've been doing this for a while, my son was diagnosed over 8 years ago, I'm still not an expert in autism, but I remember those early days when I would go into meetings and people would be talking to me, and for me it was, I'd waited for that meeting, and in some cases I was paying for the meeting and I wanted to understand what they were talking about so that I could be an effective member of a team that was working to help my child. But they might as well have been speaking another language, Latin. I had no idea what they were talking about, and it was very overwhelming. And, a lot of things in life are overwhelming, and one of the things that we can do for ourselves when they're overwhelming is slow it down. We're going to have Dr. Tarbox on a little bit later on in the show, and one of the things that he always says to me is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's what we're doing with the jargon when we do this jargon of the day, taking it one bite at a time, taking one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it for you. And we give you an actual definition, right? Because we think that that's important, but a lot of times those actual definitions are not useful to us unless we understand even more jargon. So then we give you a working definition that hopefully helps you to understand how this really affects you today. All right? So our term today is receptive language. On Tuesday, we talked about expressive language. So let's take a look at our actual definition for what receptive language is. And of course, oh, there we go. We have gremlins today in the studio. I don't know what's going on, but it wasn't coming up, but it's there now. Receptive language, the process of attending to a communication, spoken or non-vocal, comprehending the communication, and being able to react appropriately within a specified time parameter, even when what is being conveyed contains multiple facets. Okay. A lot of words there, and I understand what all of them mean, but I want to know, what does this mean for my child in his classroom? What are we really talking about here? So we go on to our working definition. The working definition for receptive language is the child's ability to understand what is being said to them. So we talked about expressive, that when you're expressing yourself, expressive language is stuff that goes out from you to someone else when you're communicating your needs. Receptive, if you think about recept, when you receive, It's when information comes in the form of language, and by the way, that's not always vocal. That could be your child's ability to understand hand gestures. Some children, their ability to understand facial expressions even, that's all part of communication. So does your child, are they able to take in the information from what's around them and process it? And can they process it in a way that is useful to them in real time? I know sometimes, and I'm a former teacher, sometimes you have a child, it's interesting when you're watching 25 to 30 kids in a classroom, right? And you say something, you say, take out your book. Right? And then you pause for a second and you see that some children immediately go and take out their book. Other children missed it in the first time and they're looking around to see what other kids are doing. Oh, they're taking out their books. I guess I better take my book out too. And still other kids miss it entirely, right? Because, and it can be a lot of different things. For some kids, it's being able to process the sounds. Their brain takes a little bit more time to be able to process it. For other kids, it's attention, right? But being able to take in that information, maybe the teacher raises their finger and points to the clock. And you've got half the kids who look up and look at the clock and they have a reaction to it. There are other kids who look up at the clock, but they don't know what that means. And other kids who miss it entirely. So we want to strengthen all of our kids' communication, right? And especially for receptive, it's something that can be very dicey because a lot of times kids will be labeled as being non-compliant because their receptive language isn't where it needs to be. The child who wasn't able to process the sounds of take out your book for whatever reason. Sometimes there's something called phonemic awareness, being able to understand the phonics, hear them, and process them really quickly in your brain. Some kids are just slower at it, and some kids just really can't break it down and need a lot of support in that area. But for whatever reason, the teacher said take out the book, and the child doesn't do it. And sometimes people think, oh, well, that's just the child who doesn't want to behave. That's the child who just doesn't want to do what we ask them to do. It really isn't the case a lot of the time. Really important as a parent and as a teacher and as a practitioner to have an understanding of where are the child's strengths and weaknesses in terms of expressive language and receptive language. A lot of parents will talk about the fact that they thought that because their child wasn't speaking, that their expressive language wasn't as vocal as they had expected it to be at a certain time, that they assumed that the receptive language wasn't there either. And we find frequently that the child is hearing and processing things that's at a higher rate. And of course, the flip is true as well also. Like I was just saying about those kids who aren't hearing it, and so the assumption is that they are non-compliant. That crushes my heart as somebody who cares about kids and has a child who's on the autism spectrum, for somebody to make a judgment about a child and think, oh, well, they just don't want to do it, when in fact the child is hampered by their ability to process that information in a way that they can react. We know, though, that we can strengthen that. Isn't that great? That's the good news. We can strengthen that receptive language and help to, even for those kids who have the phonemic awareness delay, there are lessons that we can do to help them to process those sounds. It's awesome stuff. So do understand what your child's expressive language is and what their receptive language is, and then you will have a better understanding of where you need to teach. Wouldn't it be criminal to spend a whole lot of time strengthening expressive awareness for a child who really desperately needed some receptive help? And of course, it's always great to have that snapshot picture of where the individual is. Because honestly, this isn't just children, this is adults as well. If you think, and on and off the spectrum, we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. Obviously, I am somebody who loves to express, right? But I honestly struggle sometimes. I've got some hearing issues, and I struggle sometimes to be able to hear and process what somebody's being able to say. And sometimes I got to think it through through, because I've got a little bit of a hearing problem, I have to think it through and say, okay, what I heard was this, and it has to filter and trickle down into, so I think that probably meant this. And sometimes I have to ask, did you just say this or did you say that? It takes me a while. This is not my strength. Expressive is more my strength, but that doesn't mean I stop working on it, right? We continue to work on these things. Okay, so there's receptive language. Now, we always have a question of the day for you that we like to ask you, and we love it when you answer on Twitter, on Facebook, and hopefully today we'll have an opportunity on the show to take a look at it and talk about it on the show. But even if we don't, it's so beneficial because so many people go on our Facebook page, and when you write things in, it helps them sometimes to know a question that they never even thought to ask. So today we want to know from you, what autism services have you been able to access through insurance? So, you know, there are many people, we've been talking about this all week long, and you saw yesterday that we had CAN written on our foreheads. Because we're talking about coverage for autism now. There are a lot of people out there who think it's done, that we've arrived. We've arrived on the mothership. There's insurance reform in 35 states here in the United States, and there's the Affordable Care Act, so everybody has access to autism insurance. It's not the case. We're nowhere near done. And I think it's really important for all of us to acknowledge the advances that we've made and talk for a little bit today about some of the services that people are able to access. I know Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson shared with us yesterday that the aide that goes to school with her son that's helping her to access the curriculum is being paid for by her insurance. And it's important for us to talk about those things because there are probably some of you out there that didn't occur to you that was a possibility, that your insurance could pay for that. We talk about skills a lot on the show. By the way, a great way to go in and take the assessment and get a snapshot of where your child is with their expressive language and their receptive language. And we were talking with Dr. Doreen Grampachet about that yesterday, and she mentioned that a lot of people are getting their skills subscription paid for by their insurance provider. So there are a bunch of different ways that people are accessing insurance and using it to do a lot of things to help them get to that progress. So let's talk about some of the different ways that you guys are using insurance coverage so that we know how beneficial it can be. It's helpful to know, what are we fighting for, right? So do take the opportunity to write in and let other people know what the good news has been so that they understand why they should be accessing it as well. So we can help to tell those legislators, we've got to get coverage for everybody. It can't just be for some people. I'm not going to be able to sleep if that's what we say. It's got to be for everybody. We got to level this playing field. Okay, we always have a topic for the day and for the week, and our topic this entire week continues to be CAN, Coverage for Autism Now. I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of days talking to reporters about this, and it is so mind-boggling to me when we start thinking about how far we've come and still how far we have left to go. Those families right now that had coverage here in the state of California, they had coverage under the Healthy Families program, and then they were switched to Medi-Cal and they lost their coverage. I have to be honest with you. I heard some of those families speak to Senator Darrell Steinberg a couple of weeks ago when he held a forum and asked families to come talk to me. Tell me how insurance is working for you. Tell me how it's not working for you so that we know how to better serve you. Kudos to the senator for how much he has been willing to be in the trenches for our families in this regard. But it was heart-wrenching to listen to some of these families talk about the fact that they had been getting ABA services, that they were seeing improvement, and then their coverage stopped. And I try to put myself in their shoes. I think it would drive me mad. It's so important that we get these services to people who need them, and that's not going to work unless we get access to insurance. It's got to happen. Coverage for autism now, and not just for some, but for all, and not just in some states, but in all states. We need to do this in our home states first. I always say, you know, we're here in California, and it's important that we make sure that we have it in our neighborhood first, because as California goes, so goes the rest of the country. We've seen that. And then as our country goes, so goes the rest of the world. It's important that we all stand in solidarity on this. CAN, Coverage for Autism Now. Now, today we've got a really exciting show lined up for you. Really thrilled that we have a wonderful author who's going to be with us, Barry Rudner. He is the author of a book, and I want to get the title right. It's called Silent Voice, and it's a children's book about autism. So we're going to be talking with him a little bit later. We've got some more news to give you, and then in the second hour of the show, I know you guys missed him last week. Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is going to be with us answering your questions. We call it Science Beat because we're going to talk about some of the research, and today in particular we're going to be talking about behavioral intervention plans, how we come up with them, why they're effective, why all of our kids need to have them if they're engaging in behaviors that are in some way making a challenge for them or for the people around them. We've already gotten some questions for Dr. Tarbox that have come in that go hand in hand with what we were going to talk about anyway. So if you've written in a question this morning, we're going to get to it with Dr. Tarbox. All right, so stick with us. More of Autism Live after these messages.
My name is Rachel. My son is Kyle. He has autism.
I am Kyle. I am 9 years old.
He's been with CARD since he was 2 years old, so that's about 7 years. We've been really fortunate that we've seen so much change in Kyle that you would really not even realize he has autism.
The front of the book has an artwork piece.
Is that me?
No, that's a self-portrait, that's why.
I thought so. Look, you're wearing the same kind of color shirt. He had been going along with pretty main milestones. He had walked on time, he had sat on time, he was looking at me at different things and laugh, and he had about 5 words, and then all of a sudden he lost the words. And I would call his name and he wouldn't look at me anymore. He all of a sudden went into his own world. I mean, I just noticed like he slipped away from us. I got into UCLA because somebody called in sick one day, and we were on her waiting list, but she said, oh, I had a cancellation, can you bring your son in today? I took my son in with my mom, and we had a 2.5-hour appointment where they observed his behavior, noticed they didn't have any words. He was climbing all over things and jumping off her furniture because he had no sense of fear. He couldn't actually feel very much. The doctor told me, ask for CARD, you can call them. I called them and got on their waiting list, and then I started researching what ABA was. ABA with CARD was the only scientific-based research that had shown that children could improve, or now they even say recover. And my son, I think, having all this therapy early, he's going to graduate from CARD. He's going to be able to be part of the community as a typical kid. How does it make you feel when you play the violin?
It makes me a little bit calmer.
Kyle, early on, he only liked baby food, and even at age 4, he was eating baby food, and he liked lots of flavors, but he didn't like anything with the texture. So he wanted everything pureed. So if you can imagine, as a mom, I'm up, cooking carrots and then pureeing them when he couldn't just have a carrot. It was really time consuming, and I could get the protein and everything into him, but he wasn't eating like a typical child. It was 1 year later, he, instead of eating blended bananas, he was now, peeling the banana and biting into the banana. Taking a hot dog on a gluten-free bun and biting into it. I mean, that is just amazing. So that was one of the main things I came home thinking, wow, this is great. It really was a relief for me because I was doing a lot of blending. I think I went through 3 blenders, and that's just not every mom that wants to have a regular meal and be able to have the same food with their son. So it really helped. Right now, he's on the road to recovery, we call it, and I really do think that Kyle, in a year or 2, will not even need assistance with therapists. He really is in a typical class, and he's at the highest level. He's in the advanced level. He's in a GATE class. I don't even think anyone knows in his class he has autism because he's just there.
This is a mobile. I got a very good grade on it. I got 4 because my teacher said that she learned a lot about Neil Armstrong. This is a drawing of Neil's first footprint on the moon.
Is his footprint still there?
Yeah, it is, and his boots.
And his boots?
He left his boots on the moon.
He did. Everyone thinks he's very kind and he gives hugs to everyone, so the social interaction is there. He's very intelligent, he's highest in his class, and he makes friends, and he loves to read, and he's just a part of groups when he meets people.
My first trip to SeaWorld, I wrote it, but I wanted to make sure that you noticed that the sun is moving higher.
What does that signify?
That signifies that time is going. This is artwork in a frame. That took me a lot of work to do. I have some instruments over here. Something inspired me to make instruments. This was from last year for a fundraiser. This is the surfing pictures.
So here you're going on the surfboard, and did you stand up right away?
Yeah, I did.
You did. And show us how your stance on the surfboard. Ready? Go. And what's your favorite part about surfing?
The very first time I loved the wipeout. And I hope that you enjoyed me, Mom, and all of my interests in learning a little bit about me. The end.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have said that we're going to be talking about all this week can, coverage for autism now. This is a really difficult thing to understand, and I've been talking all week long with people about who's insured, who's not insured, why aren't they insured. Okay, so we're going to start with just a little bit of a primer about insurance. A lot of us, we're employed by our employer, and we have something that is called insurance, that our HR calls insurance, and we have an insurance card, right? But when you get right down to it, some of us have actual insurance, and some of us have something else. It's when our employer is self-insured, which means that they have a company that manages their insurance, but they're paying the actual fees for it, so it's not really insurance. Somebody is actually footing the bill for it. Insurance is when you're covering yourself against losses, right? So if you have 35 employees and everybody pays in $50, but somebody, that insurance company is making a bet that they're going to get enough premiums that they're going to be able to cover everybody, right? Regardless, one person is probably going to have extensive medical, and they're still going to be able to make a profit from that. When it's self-insurance, it means that the company is going to foot the bill for whatever happens. They're governed by two entirely different things, and they have different rules. For this, the reason why a lot of employers do the self-insured is that a lot of times they end up saving money doing it. And not just in terms of what's covered, but also because there are tax benefits that come from them being self-insured. There is a tax that comes now with the other kind of insurance as part of the Affordable Care Act, but when you're self-insured, you don't pay that tax. It's extensive. It's a great deal of money. And you get to pick what you want to do. Those plans are called ERISA plans, and they are covered by federal laws. When it's insurance, it's covered by state laws. So when we see autism insurance pass reform in a state, like in the state of California, California has said that in the state of California, insurance plans need to cover ABA for autism. And there are these lovely posters everywhere that say, if you live in the state of California and you have insurance, then your child is covered for ABA. And everybody went, yay! There's a little unseen asterisk at the end of that sentence, though, that says that you need to check whether you have insurance or whether your employer uses self-insured plans. Because if they do the self-insured plans, this state law does not apply to them. They do not have to abide by that. By the way, many companies choose to. Many self-insured companies choose to do the right thing and cover ABA for autism, but they don't have to. There is no law that says they have to. However, there are many things to be taken into consideration. And just a couple of days ago, a class action lawsuit was filed against Boeing, the aerospace giant. They've been hit with a complaint in federal court by its Washington state employees who claim that the company's denial of insurance coverage of applied behavior analysis for their children with autism violates the Federal Mental Health Parity Act. It was filed by two families who have children on the autism spectrum, and they have filed it on behalf of the 81,000 Washington-based employees. They, by the way, Boeing is listed as number 30 on the Fortune 500. It's one of the nation's largest aerospace and defense firms. They reported $3.9 billion in profits last year and on $81.7 billion in revenues. Their headquarters in Chicago, and half of Boeing's employees are based in the state of Washington. And the suit was filed in the U.S. District Court. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This company is self-funded. They are an ERISA plan. So as far as I know, this is the first lawsuit of this nature, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in this lawsuit. And as this says in this article, and you can read the entire article, it's part of Autism Votes on Autism Speaks. The case has significance because Boeing self-insures its employees' health plan and therefore is regulated under federal ERISA law, which is immune from state autism insurance reform laws. And such as the law is in its headquarters in the state of Illinois. The suit was filed by Seattle attorneys. And the complaint alleges Boeing's denial of ABA violates the 2008 Wellstone-Domenici Mental Health Parity and Addition Equity Act, as well as its fiduciary responsibilities under ERISA. Okay, so let's talk just briefly. I know this is, you go, why? I don't really want to have to deal with all this. Except that this is life-changing stuff. This is life-changing stuff for so many different families that are out there. So there was a federal Mental Health Parity Act that was passed that said you cannot discriminate against things. If you cover something for mental health, then you must cover all things for mental health. So if, for instance, in your health plan, you have coverage, let's say that the horror of all horrors, that an individual is in a car accident and they have brain damage. And part of what we know when somebody has brain damage is they're going to have to go through a certain amount of therapy, behavioral therapy, to learn how to potentially brush their teeth or open a door or unlock a cabinet. If your health plan is going to cover that because of a brain injury, then the Mental Health Parity Act says you must cover for other forms of brain injury that can be helped by that same type of therapy, which is ABA. So this is the law under which they're challenging this. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the Boeing plan, so it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with this, but this is something that's very much in discussion right now. A lot of these companies that aren't covering ABA, they're making the choice in their self-insured plans that they're not covering ABA and that they don't have to. And it will be very interesting to see a lot of these companies are being called out. They're companies whose brands say that they support families with autism, but they are not covering their very own employees. There are some rather big names, lots of companies that are on the Fortune 500. And my fear is that there will be more of those companies saying, you know, I don't really want to pay this, so let's go over to the self-insured and have all those benefits of the self-insured. What would fix this? What would fix all of this is if there was a federal mandate that said you have to cover ABA. And we thought we had that. We thought we had that because it was in the 10 essential health benefits, and the power was given to Kathleen Sebelius to decide how she wanted to legislate that. And she made the choice to give it to the states. And that's why we're back to, you know, ERISA is not, it appears that ERISA, that it's outside the ERISA, but if this lawsuit gains traction, we will see a shift here, and it would be a huge shift, one that would be very, very exciting. It says here, the Mental Health Parity Act does not require Boeing to cover mental health services. Rather, it requires employers, if they do choose to provide mental health coverage, as the Boeing plan does, to cover benefits at parity with medical benefits. ERISA requires Boeing to abide by Mental Health Parity Act and other regulation in administrating its plan. It will be interesting, very interesting to see what happens. And for other employers who are watching this and saying, well, we chose not to cover autism, pay attention. It could get costly, much more costly than just doing the right thing. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with more Autism Live after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I wanted to take just a minute to talk about what we have going on here this week. And I talked about, we've got so many things going on. Tomorrow, Autism Live is venturing out to Ventura, California, where we are going to be meeting with Dr. Temple Grandin for just a brief interview with her. We spoke with her on Tuesday. If you missed that show, make sure that you go back and watch. But Temple Grandin is going to be speaking. Future Horizons does conferences around the country. They're great conferences. They are one-day conferences, and generally Temple Grandin is there to speak at them. Sometimes they have Eustacia Cutler, who is Temple's mother, and they have other experts as well. They're really lovely, and they're, as I said, all over the United States. You can find out more information by going to fhautism.com. That stands for Future Horizons Autism.com, but it's fhautism.com. So go, and if you register online, you can save $5 off the registration. It's a really full day. Temple is going to be speaking tomorrow about her topic is My Sensory World. So it promises to be really fascinating. If you have not had an opportunity to meet Temple Grandin or see her speak in public, I really want to urge you to do that. Temple is really healthy and is very active, but she's getting into years where there is a potential that at some point she will want to retire. And I really want to encourage you to go and hear her speak. It's very inspirational. She really delivers. It's amazing. It's life-changing. I don't want to oversell it, but it's worthwhile going. So if you can be in Ventura tomorrow and you are going to be there, make sure that you say hi to us, because we're going to be there as well. Both myself and Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, Emily's going to be with us, and I'm taking my son. I think it's that important. I'm taking my son. I want him to meet Temple Grandin, and I want Temple to meet him. That's a very exciting thing. So if you're there, make sure that you come up and say hi to us. But if you can't get to Ventura County, do check out their website and see if there is a conference that's coming close to you so that you can have that opportunity to go and hear her speak in person. It's amazing. Then on Saturday is a very big day here in Los Angeles, because Autism Speaks has their Walk Now for Autism on Saturday morning at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. And it is a really incredible day. We love to be there. The first one of the walks that I attended, I think, was the year after my son had been diagnosed, and we had already started ABA therapy, and I was really feeling alone. I got to be honest with you, I was feeling completely alone, and we went to that walk, and it was amazing to just look at a sea of people. There was one moment in particular where I had my son in his stroller, and he, it's noisy. I will tell you that. There are quiet places that you can go, quiet zones where they deaden the noise so that kids and parents can de-stress, because it's a huge event. They're expecting over 50,000 people, and it's exciting, and there are, 2 stages, and there's bands playing, and there's a marching band that walks through the area. It's noisy. And there's a lot going on, and it's very colorful, and there are things to do for kids, but sometimes it can be overwhelming, and not just for the kiddos who are on the spectrum. So they built in their quiet zones that you can go, but it's lovely. And I remember I had my son in his stroller, and I was trying to negotiate through the crowd, and at one point I was getting a little frustrated, and there was a woman coming the other way with her stroller with a kiddo, and we both kind of looked at each other for a moment. It was like, I'm so stressed, and does this person not realize? And I will be honest with you, this moment passed between the two of us, because I remember thinking, okay, you're stressed and you have a kid in a stroller, but my kid's about to have a meltdown, and you don't understand what that's about, right? And she was thinking the same thing, and our eyes met, and we realized where we were. We were at an autism event, and that in all likelihood, and we both looked at each other's children for a second. It was just this crazy, you talk about non-vocal communication that this woman and I had. We both looked at each other's children and looked back at each other and realized, oh my gosh, you do know what I'm going through. You know exactly what I'm going through. And we did everything but hug each other. Didn't know this woman's name, but we had this little moment there. And for me, that was a shift where I started looking at the whole event differently and going, look at all these people. All of these people are here to support us. All of these people are here because in some form or another, they get it. Look, you just don't get up on a Saturday morning in April and drive down to the Rose Bowl and go through the parking nightmare that you have to go through. Although, let me tell you, there's this year they're doing something different with parking. But it's still, it's a thing to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning to participate in this. You don't do this unless you care, right? Not everybody who's there has a child on the autism spectrum, but they care. And that, my friends, you just can't bottle that. You cannot sell that. It gives you something. Every time I go to the walk, and we've been going every year since then, I always find at least one moment when I can just stand and look and soak it in and know I'm not alone, that we're all in this together. And together, when we all hold hands, we get progress. We find solutions. It's important. It fills my batteries for another year. So for that reason alone, go to the walk. But there's so much more on top of that. There's the Los Angeles Autism Walk has the biggest resource fair probably in the world. If you want to know anything about autism, it's there on that day. Get your shopping list out of what do I want to know more about? Do I want to know about an assistance dog? Do I, am I looking for a new ABA provider? Do I want to know about shirts that are tagless and seamless so that my sensory kid isn't having problems? Do I want to know about what resources are there for teenagers? Do I want to know about who's working on employment and how are they working on employment? Do I want to know about tennis lessons? Do I want to know about ballet? Do I want to know about anything under the sun? Do I need an advocate? Do I need a lawyer? They're there. They're there. There are people there that you can ask questions. Any possible kind of support that there is. And in a huge area around Los Angeles, everybody is there. And Autism Live will be there as well. This year we have a booth. We're going to be, in the past, we've always been mobile and we've gone through and interviewed people. We're going to be doing that too, but we're also having a booth too so that you guys can find out more information about us. We've sort of, in the past, been there to cover the event and haven't taken advantage of the fact that there are so many parents out there and individuals who are on the spectrum out there and teachers that are out there that would like more information about what we're doing. So we're going to try to do it all on Saturdays. There will be a booth. If you come to the walk, come to the booth, get a chance to meet us. We've got some things that we're giving away at the booth, and we want to meet you because we feel like we know you, but it would be fun to give a hug and to say hi to your kiddos and to participate with you and maybe get you on camera. Wouldn't that be fun? So go to the walk. This is my be-all and end-all. Go to the walk, participate, and if you're there, come by and see us. Now, for those of you who are not in the Los Angeles area and you go, okay, you just told me this great thing and I want to come, but I can't get there, and believe me, I understand. There's probably a walk in your area. And I've had the great pleasure of going to walks in other places, and it was 2 years ago that I went to the LA walk on one Saturday, and the following Saturday I went to a walk in Oswego County in upstate New York, a place that I used to teach college. And it was one of the smaller walks in terms of how many people were at the resource fair. It didn't matter. It was incredible, and I still got that same energized look at us. Look at us together. We're a beautiful community, and we have a lot that we've accomplished, and we've got a lot more that we're accomplishing together. I still got that feeling and met all these fascinating people at the resource fair. So wherever you are, I want to encourage you, find the walk that's close to you, and if there's one event that you can get to a walk. Get to a walk. You don't have to walk. I can tell you that usually I don't get an opportunity to walk at the walk, but I commune and I connect and I get my batteries recharged, and that's invaluable. So I encourage you to do that. So stick with us. We're going to take a break and we're going to be right back after these messages.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts, where you get to ask the questions and we help lead you to the common answers and available for your autism journey. A most common question we get is, why are some of the treatments used in the medical world not covered for autism? My answer to you, and it may shock you, is they are covered. The stopgap between payment and non-payment is how you code your insurance bills. Now, there are some standards, an American Academy of Pediatric Standards of Care for autism that are covered. Those are available on the Taka Now website, takanow.org. But what you find often, and this has been proven in multiple studies, that children with autism not just suffer with or have issues with that label, they also have a lot of other medical issues that tend to come with autism. So as a parent, you need to know we have a complete white paper on all of the things I'm going to describe to you that's free. It talks about the most common comorbid conditions that comes with autism. So comorbid, just think of it as comes with. So at the TACA website, we give you all of the codes in our health insurance tips, reimbursement tips document that will help you code and get the maximum reimbursement from your health insurance company. So no, autism is treatable, and yes, health insurance do pay for that treatment. So hopefully that tip helped. We'll see you back next time for the next Talk of Fact.
Welcome to Camp Discovery, a free-to-play suite of fun, interactive learning games for kids 2 and up, designed by experts in autism. Camp Discovery will open your early learner to a world of new skills, shapes, numbers, colors, locations, emotions, and more. Let's get started.
Please choose a level.
Objects. First, Camp Discovery's Intelligent Preference Assessment determines your child's preferred reward for choosing correctly. Okay, got it. Let's play. Camp Discovery creates a motivating learning environment for your child by minimizing incorrect responses and maximizing successful ones.
Find the shoes.
Respond correctly and your child is rewarded with their favorite animations.
You did it.
Respond incorrectly and our unique prompting system guides your child to the correct answer by making it the largest choice.
That's not it. Try again. Way to go.
Continue to answer correctly and the size gradually reduces until the child makes the correct choice independently.
You win.
Success! Rewards motivate learning. Complete a round and your child is rewarded with a fun mini-game. Track your child's progress with easy-to-read graphs. Multiple settings options allow you to customize Camp Discovery to your child's unique needs. All this in one single app, the Camp Discovery app, available for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon Store.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very thrilled that we have joining us via Skype an author and a poet who specializes in writing children's books that help to build self-esteem. Barry Rudner is with us. Barry, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we love that your focus as a children's writer is about talking about acceptance of self and self-esteem. And we're particularly thrilled that your newest book, Silent Voice, focuses on autism. This is a thing whose time has come. So Barry, talk to us a little bit about how you were inspired to write this children's book.
I have a very close friend of mine in Atlanta that we talk every birthday for 22 years or so. We talked, and she asked what I was working on, and I said basically nothing, actually a screenplay. And she said, have you ever thought about writing something on autism? And I said, I know nothing about it. I'm one of the individuals who have been guilty all my life of not being cognizant of what it was. And I approached it and I said, let me do some research and see what I can come up with. And after about 2.5, 3 months of research, I realized that I was speaking and learning a totally different language on a different planet, almost in a different galaxy. And I was stunned at the pandemic nature of this disorder.
Yes.
Enough that I needed to address it. And so 48 revisions later, and that's the way I look at it. I'm not a great writer, but I'm a very disciplined rewriter. And 48 revisions later, a Silent Voice evolved. So.
Well, and I think, I'm glad that you brought that up about revision, because I think that people think that children's books, because they're shorter in nature, are easier to write, but you have to power pack everything that you want to say into a much smaller, more concise venue, right? I mean, you got to hone it down.
It's, in essence, a little screenplay, a storyboard.
Yeah.
In the late 90s, I got a copy of a book by Robert McKee named Story. And I took 3 things from it. Number 1, never fall in love with what you write. The chances are you're going to throw it out. Number 2, always write from the inside out, meaning know your topic.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to put everything you want in there.
Yeah.
And number 3, make your transitions quickly, your turning points quickly. And with 32 pages, you have to do it very quickly.
Well, let's talk about the second one that you talked about, knowing. So here you are, you're an author. Somebody has said to you, write a book about autism, and you admit that you didn't know anything about it. What did you find out about autism that you ended up putting in the book?
It was all about the you know, that they talk about the triad of symptomology in terms of impaired communication skills, impaired social skills, repetitive movements, restrictive movements. In other words, the book evolved into what these children aren't, to what autism is, what these children are, and what we're here to do to help. Mm-hmm. And our focus is on hoping and increasing awareness to a point where these kids will have a chance to self-determine their lives. Absolutely. That's what we're all doing here.
Absolutely.
And-
Well, that brings me to my next question, Barry. Who do you think the audience is for this book, Silent Voice?
I not only think the audience is for the people that I wrote it for.
Well, who are they?
Children. The children and the parents of children.
Okay.
Who have this child hidden in plain sight, literally. But also for people who were like me that had no idea of the pandemic nature. And I don't mean this badly. Because it's not a contagion, we don't look at it the same way. We don't give it the same credence as, let's say, the pandemic influenza of 1918. It's not a contagion. But in terms of the pandemic nature of the disorder, if in fact the CDC is correct and it's now one of 68 children, that's 1.5% of the United States, let alone what's happening worldwide.
Absolutely.
This is a pandemic disorder. It does need to be addressed, and awareness has to be increased so you can drive it to a point where science and awareness meld and focus on a treatment.
Well, it's a beautiful book, and the words in it are beautiful. It is beautiful poetry about something that's very, very emotional. You talk about the lost childhood, something that I don't think a whole lot of people are talking about, Barry. And as an autism parent, it's very touching. As I was reading it, I was thinking, who would I gift this to? And it's something that I would gift to parents that have just had a diagnosis, to acknowledge what they're going through and the fact that there is hope.
It is supposed to drive in that direction since we don't have answers.
Yeah.
We really don't. And again, it's a spectrum. That much I learned. I mean, you talk about all the chemistries involved and tetrogenins and so forth and so on, and all the different things that can go into this. I mean, we talk about cancer. There's 200 different types of cancer in 60 organs. Here we're talking about a spectrum that could be caused by so many different things into the disruption in how children process information.
Well, it sounds like you learned a lot, Barry, in your research. Tell us where we can purchase the book.
The book can be purchased on our website at www.nickoftime.us, and hopefully it will get on the bookshelves and it will drive itself. And there will be other releases to come, re-releases of other literature that deals with self-esteem and self-determination, and that's what Nick of Time is really all about. It's about anything that deprives a child of self-determination must be addressed.
So again, that website is nickoftime.us.
Yes.
Okay. We thank you so much for your work, for these beautiful words, and for being with us here today.
I cannot appreciate your time enough, and I thank you for inviting me on your program.
Thank you, Barry.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So again, that was Barry Rudner. He is a children's author, and his book is Silent Voice. It's available at nickoftime.us. We're going to take a break, and we are going to go to the A Word, in fact. This is the ongoing documentary that's being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. And at this point in the series, Jack Riley has already begun his early intensive behavioral intervention and is making progress. It's fascinating to watch all the different things that he and his family are working on and seeing where that progress is happening. So take a look. This is the A Word.
J, K. Say it louder. L. Mhm. N. O. O. P. Q. R. S. S. No. T. Ha ha ha. Okay, fine. We'll sing later. He's like a sponge right now. Anything we say, he just wants to repeat everything. Even during other programs, he'll just repeat the same instruction. We've been really working on eye contact in a structured setting, giving him the instruction, look at me, and he's required to look at us, but that's been a little difficult because he's confusing the eye contact with verbal imitation, so he'll just say, look at me, instead of actually looking at you. So during play, I'll call his name or say, look at me, and he's doing really good. I don't have to prompt him too many times. He actually just spontaneously will look on his own, which is a lot better today.
Help.
Help? What do you need help with? What do you need help with?
Let's see that again. Eye contact.
What do you need help with?
Look.
Huh? Show me. What do you want? What do you want?
Box.
Box? Okay. Say, I want box.
Box.
Say, I
Hey.
want.
Box.
Yeah, say, I want box.
Yeah, box.
Good. Here you go.
Here you go.
So we have a couple new programs that I'll show you. We have receptive commands, so that's just when we give him an instruction vocally, and he has to be able to perform that instruction just by being able to identify and comprehend receptively what it means. And a lot of the actions that we're going to be doing, they're gross motor actions, and they're the same actions we've been doing in NVI, so non-vocal imitation. So there'll be a look very familiar, but it's just we're doing it receptively now instead of expressively. Do this. Good job. Ready? Do this. Yay! Very good. Stand up. That's good. Nice job. There's one sticker. Okay, ready? Clap hands. Oh, almost, but try again, okay? Try again. Ready? Clap hands. Oh, almost, kiddo. We're gonna try again, okay? This is clap hands. Can you do it? Do this. Like that. Yeah. Okay, ready? Clap hands. Like this. Yeah. Clap hands. Yeah. Okay, you try. Clap hands. Yeah, that's clap hands. Okay, ready? Clap hands. Yeah, there you go. Okay, one more sticker. Stand up. That's right. You got all your stickers. Good job. Okay. Wait. Thank you. So that's another thing. Wait. Another thing we're working on is having him wait for things. And we're starting off with just 2 seconds. Just things like waiting for tangible items, like things that he really wants, or waiting before we go somewhere, or waiting before we open the door or something. Just so he learns that when we say wait, he just has to stand there and wait for whatever amount of time. But as he gets better and better, we're going to increase the increments of, increase the duration of the time he has to wait.
He went swimming yesterday for the first time in a while.
How did that go? Went okay.
Yeah.
He was excited. He loved being in the water, but
Last
he was
summer
a little
we
cautious.
went in several times, and then we got diagnosed in the winter or fall, but he hasn't been in since he got diagnosed.
Okay. And did you do okay?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't here, and she was with him.
Oh, that's great.
And Papa was with
No?
us.
There too.
Yeah.
No. Woo! Down. Up. Up. Down. Up. Down. Up. Down. Should we draw What's this?
Cat.
My mom didn't even finish. And you knew what it was.
Cat.
What's the cat say?
Meow.
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 What else do you want to draw?
Meow.
What's this?
Meow. Cloud.
Cloud. What if I do this to it?
Clouds.
Now what is it?
Tree.
Tree. Are we all done with that tree? What's this? Two.
Hey, buddy. Are you kind of a narcissist?
I think he's trying to figure out.
How can I see me?
How can I? He's so funny. He'll do that.
How can I get a better look at me?
Yeah.
He's going to climb on your lap, Miss Suzanne. I hope you don't mind.
There are some days when I'm invisible and just a fixture in the room. Today is not one of them. The past few sessions, Jack Riley will for a moment notice me and become fascinated with the camera. He's been interested in looking through the viewfinder and figuring out the difference of what he sees in front of him and what the frame is showing him. It's like he's trying to figure out what kind of reflection is being shown to him. The way in which he looks at himself and others in the camera, to me, relates to eye contact. It seems easier through that buffer.
Never interrupt a man in his crush.
He was flirting with the girls that were heading to the pool yesterday.
I guess there were some bikini girls over here he was flirting with.
He went right up to the window and like looked right at her. Set himself up.
Yeah, he did. I didn't see it, but I had it described well to me.
Then the other girl came down to get her, and he did one of these. He watched her walk by, and I'm like, okay.
Well, remember what he did to the waitress at Bodega?
It was all over her.
Yeah, he once, we went to this restaurant, and our waitress came up, and this was, I don't know, 10 months ago?
Yeah.
8 to 10 months ago, and she sauntered off, with her, and he goes like this in his stroller. He goes like this. Like the college kid, watching her walk away. Right, Jack? Then he said, Dad, check it out. No, I'm just kidding. That was too much. Did I go too far? Did I go too far?
The fact that I was taking his pants off. that might have been it.
Dad.
Hey, Stinky, now you're climbing on her with the diaper.
That's not good. That's not good. She didn't buy in for that.
I took your game, didn't I?
Yeah, I don't have any game now. No game, Dad. No game, Mom.
Pretty hard to be cool with the diaper on. Okay, sillies. Come here.
Hey.
1, 2, 3!
She's still filming. You can still watch. See?
You want to see?
There's some stuff you might not want to see, but...
Here, let's get the cracker off your chin.
No kicking. No kicking.
Don't kick your sister.
Don't kick your sister. Yeah. I was going to say, Mom? Really? Okay.
Also, I was telling him in the pool yesterday, don't kick your little sister. And I'm like, well, that's the first time of many that I'll tell him that. Before you go back to flirting.
Rule number 1.
Yes, definitely pants back on. No kicking. Hey, squirrel! Squirrel! Ow! Squirrel! Squirrel! Peppa Pig. Daddy Pig. Mommy Pig. Baby Pig. Baby Pig. Peppa Pig. Baby.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Just a couple of quick things that I want to take care of. I want to remind you that's the A word, and you can be watching that entire series at your leisure and skip and watch different parts and search keywords to figure out if you want to know about how did they teach something, you can look it up and find that specific episode. So do that on their very own YouTube page. Also want to address that we were talking about the Autism Walk this Saturday, and I can only assume because it says Inc. for Autism event that Carrie Mallory Thompson, that this is you writing in saying, ugh, the more you talk about it, the more it makes me want to go. If I didn't have to go to my Inc. for Autism event, looking forward to seeing pics and video and hearing all about it next week, though. And Carrie, you will be there in spirit, and we will also be in spirit at your Inc. for Autism event in Phoenix. And I love that you also wrote in Phoenix, October 26th is when your walk is, and that you are inviting us to come and walk. And we'll see if we can fit that into our schedule. I'd love nothing more than to be able to be there and walk with you guys. And it just drives home that if you can be in the LA area to do the walk, I really think it's a beneficial thing to do. You will meet people, you will see how many people this affects, and it will recharge your batteries. But if you can't, look for the one that's closest to you. A really important event to go to. All right, having said all of that, I'm so excited because we have back in the studio with us now live Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and he is the head of research and development at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and also the director of the Autism Research Group. So thrilled to have you back.
Thank you.
We miss you when you're not here. I know you have other things to do, other fish to fry from time to time, but we really miss you.
Thank you.
And I love it when you're here because you talk about research and you talk about science-based things, and I feel like you're the tether for our balloons so we don't just float away into outer space, right? Because sometimes we talk about things and we get excited about things, but we have to stay tethered.
Right.
We have to stay tethered and follow the science.
Right.
And that's what you help us to do, and you help us to understand the science too.
Thank you very much.
Which is huge. So I wanted Dr. Tarbox to talk with us today about the importance of BIPs, behavior intervention plans, and how we build a BIP, why it's so important, who should have it, and what circumstances we can use it. And we're going to talk about all that, but I want to start with a question from a viewer because I think it's going to lead us into talking about a BIP. Okay, so I got to scroll back up to it though. All right, hello Shannon, it's always a pleasure to watch you and all the specialists on the show. I have a behavioral question. My son is a bit over 3.5 years old, language delay, and for the past 2 months, from the time he gets off the bus, not even to the sidewalk yet, he has tantrums, meltdowns, hitting, kicking, all the way up to the house and into the house, and we don't do any. There's a little bit of a misprint here, but do anything else throughout the entire rest of the day until around 8:30. When it's close to bedtime, he calms down a bit. I tried putting him down for a nap to see if it was that he was tired, but it doesn't work. It's overwhelming to deal with his behaviors. We can't even get dinner done on time, and when I cannot even tell when I can't even tell that everything bothers him. I called the school thinking that there's a problem there, since getting him ready on the bus is a behavior, and they think he is struggling with coping with transitions, since they are experiencing similar, less severe issues. Is that possible? And what can I do, and what can the school do? His older sibling is also on the spectrum, so thank you so much. Okay, first off, gotta say, that's a handful. You've got 2 kids on the spectrum, one of them 3.5, and this idea that you go to get him off the bus and that the tantrum is happening from the time you get him off the bus until dinner time, of course you're exhausted.
Of course, absolutely.
So, Dr. Tarbox, talk to us a little bit about what, and of course, I do have to give the disclaimer here that, and I always say this, that no one on the show can give child-specific advice, right? In this forum, it doesn't support that. We don't have enough information. Right. You could write a novel, and there still wouldn't be enough information for even a brilliant person like Dr. Tarbox to give child-specific advice. So having said that, as a person who has so much experience with autism, how would we start to look at this?
Right. So first of all, the whole issue of tantrums is, as you know, very, very common in children on the spectrum. And there's a whole continuum of severity. Some children seem like they're tantruming all day, every day. Some once a week, right? So it's a continuum. Some tantrums super severe, where kids are getting hurt and property's getting destroyed. Some are more on the, sort of just being kind of whiny and crying and screaming. It sounds like your listener has a pretty tough challenge on her plate, but the good news is tantrums are very treatable. Tantrums are not caused by autism. They're not caused by the brain. They're not just something that's inevitable. They're something that is learned and something that can be unlearned, and so that's the good news.
Okay.
Now, the very first thing that anyone should always do when you're facing a challenging behavior is rule out any type of medical or physiological thing. So it's possible that being sleep deprived, if your child has challenges with sleep, or poor diet, so they don't feel, their stomach doesn't feel good, or ear infections, things like that. Any medical issue like that, if it's an ongoing unresolved issue, is going to make you grouchier, and that goes for anyone, right? Not just for kids on the spectrum.
And that could be, you know, I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, that wouldn't be a timing thing, but I can tell you I'm allergic to wheat. And if I eat wheat, I have about an hour and a half window, and then I become the most unhappy person in the world.
Interesting.
So, and you can time it by a watch, and then I'm inconsolable.
Wow.
So, you know, and I'm sure that other people have other allergies and food sensitivities. Right. So I think it's great that you're mentioning, make sure that we rule those things out.
Rule those things out. Now, it also needs to be mentioned that in probably 99% of cases of tantrums, it has nothing to do with any medical thing whatsoever. Right. It has nothing to do with the diet, has nothing to do with the medical problem. Right. It really is a learned behavior that serves a function. And what that means is it's getting your child something that he or she wants, some consequence, some type of satisfaction. And I know that sounds crazy, right? Because, you know, as a parent, what we're doing is we're beating our heads against the wall, doing anything we can to try to keep our kid happy. So they shouldn't have to have a tantrum to get what they want. We're trying to give them what they want, right? Right. But as it turns out, for all of us, problem behavior experts included, like me, the way that we interact with our children, again, on and off the spectrum, it's just normal and it's natural for us as parents to accidentally reinforce tantrums. Yeah. And we don't even know that we're doing it.
We've all done it.
We've all done it, and it's a normal part of parenting. I've done it plenty. My wife, she's also a brilliant behavior analyst. She's done it, right? Right. Everybody does it. Nobody's perfect. And so the starting point is to just accept that, okay, yeah, there might be something that I'm doing that I could change that could help the situation.
And by the way, it may not, in some circumstances, it may not be you. It might be somebody else who's unintentionally doing it.
And usually it's more than one person. Usually it's the environment in general, right? And so there's multiple aspects of the environment that the general rule from the ABA perspective is if a behavior is ongoing, if it's maintaining at least at the same level, then there's something going on in the environment, usually multiple things going on in the environment that support that behavior, that make that behavior work.
Okay, so then we have a bit of a mystery then.
Right.
What's happening and why is this behavior continuing to be supported? Where is the support that's coming? So you're looking for the function. You're in that moment you're looking for what's the paycheck.
That's exactly
for
right.
the behavior.
Exactly right.
Okay. And so how do you go about figuring that out?
Right. Okay, great question. So a functional assessment is the name for the procedure that you use to figure out what the paycheck is for the challenging behavior, what the source of reinforcement, or what the motivation is for your child's challenging behavior. Research has shown that for individuals with developmental disabilities, in I think it's 95% of cases, or 93, I forget exactly the percentage, it's either to get attention, to get out of doing something they don't want to do, like some kind of work or non-preferred task or something like that, to get access to something they do want, like preferred food, games, puzzles, toys, whatever, or because the behavior produces its own satisfaction. It's called self-stimulatory or automatically reinforced behavior. Okay. There's 0 documented cases that I know of automatically reinforced tantrums. It might exist, that could happen at some point, it's not impossible, but it's extremely unlikely.
Okay.
So just think that one through for a second. Would someone really cry and scream to make themselves feel better? Probably not. But again, maybe if you have an ear infection, there are cases of, if you have an ear infection, of people hitting themselves in the ear because it hurts, and pressing on the ear makes the ear infection feel a little better, right? So again, rule out medical things. But in the vast majority of cases, tantrums occur either to get attention from others, to get out of doing something the child doesn't want to do. It could be homework, it could be taking a bath, it could be cleaning up toys, it could be a transition that they don't want to do, getting off the bus, getting on the bus, right? Transitioning from one activity to another. Or getting access to something they do want.
Okay, so, and you know what I call those, the 4 usual suspects. That's what I always refer to them as. So we can narrow it down to probably it's one of those 4 things, and with a tantrum we can narrow it down to it's probably one of those 3 things.
Yeah, probably 90-95% of the time you're going to get it right if you investigate those 3 things first.
But how do we get from this knowledge of saying, okay, it's probably one of these 3 things, to understanding what it is?
Right.
Do we want to just have an expert do it, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There's lots of things that you can do as a parent and that you can be trained to do as a parent to support your child on the spectrum, and your involvement and your support is absolutely critical to your child's outcome. There's no substitute for that whatsoever. And, right, in addition to your involvement, professional help is very frequently needed. And I would say pretty much any time it comes to severe challenging behavior, like ongoing tantrums that last a long time and really disrupt the whole family system, why try to fix it yourself when there's people who are experts who spend their whole careers becoming experts at fixing that problem, right? You could go to mechanic school to fix your car too if you wanted to, but why wouldn't you just take it to a mechanic, right?
Because you're not going to mess around because it's a safety issue, right? And for your kids,
it's much more serious than that.
It's very, very serious. Okay, so that would mean getting a BCBA who has experience with autism and who has experience with tantrums, calling them up and saying, I need you to do an FBA on this behavior.
Correct.
You don't have to sign up for 40 hours of ABA to have that happen.
No.
You can just call up and say, I need an FBA done on this.
That's correct.
Now, at your child's school, if it's happening at their school, you can call the school up. Actually, it's better to email them so that there's a written record and say, anytime my child is engaging in this kind of behavior, I need somebody to come in and do an FBA on this behavior, because what we want to get is to the behavior intervention plan.
Exactly.
We want to get to the roadmap of where we're going to make it better. But here's where I think a lot of parents kind of get confused is we want to make that plan, but we don't want to take the time to do that first most important step, which is figuring out why is the behavior happening. Now that I understand it, I go, why would we want to do that? Because we want to go in with hammer and nail and we don't even know where the problem is.
Right, exactly right. Exactly right. Just like it's, the same thing as a medical problem. You need a diagnosis to figure out what the actual medical problem is before you start doing treatment, right?
Right.
Like you don't just go to a doctor, like a doctor wouldn't say, oh, you're coughing, you must need antibiotics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and if they do, that's not a good doctor, right? They need to figure out the cause of the cough, right? And they wouldn't prescribe antibiotics unless it's a bacterial infection. If it's a viral infection, then you don't do that. You do something else. Usually you just wait.
And I think part of the problem is that because it's those three usual suspects, and I always say I honor a parent's gut on a whole lot of things, not on this. We think, oh, well, I think it's just that he's tired.
Right.
Or I think it's just that we shouldn't be guessing, especially when it's something like this.
Right.
Let them come in, do the FBA so that they figure out really what's the function of this behavior.
And a good BCBA, when they're doing the FBA, that's a lot of acronyms.
Yes.
They want to know your gut feeling and they want to know your hunches, and they take that information into account.
Right.
So it's not ignoring what you know about your child. It's taking that into account and putting that information as one piece in the overall puzzle of figuring out why that behavior is ongoing.
Yeah. I always go back to the mechanic, and when you go to a mechanic and they say, what's happening? And you say, well, it's making this noise. And then they'll ask you questions. Well, is it making the noise when you just start it? Or is it making the noise when you put it in park? Because they want all that information. Then they're going to go in and try to recreate it, the mechanic,
They test it out themselves.
And it's the same thing that happens with the board-certified behavior analyst. They're going to interview you and ask you all of those questions, and they're going to go and observe. And in some cases, they're going to try to create a circumstances in which they're going to see the behavior so that they understand it.
That's right.
Because we've got to narrow down, in order for the BIP, the behavior intervention plan, to be effective, we really have to know what the function is.
That's right.
Otherwise, we're throwing darts and we don't even know where the bullseye is.
Right, and you could actually even make it worse, because if you don't know the motivation, if you don't know what the child's trying to get out of that behavior, well, when you try to help the child, you might be giving them what he wants, right, when he does the behavior, which is going to do what? Support that behavior to continue. Right. So, yeah, it's very, very critical.
Okay.
And it's not just my opinion, it's even in federal law now. When you're going to intervene on a challenging behavior in public schools, you need to do a functional behavioral assessment, figure out the function of the challenging behavior.
Right.
And your behavior intervention plan needs to be based on that. It can't just be a blanket standard, gut feeling approach.
And the thing that it might have been you that explained to me, so imagine if you've got a child who's biting, and you assume that the child is biting for attention. And so you decide not to give attention to the biting, but the child was biting to get access to something, right?
Right.
And when you didn't give attention to it, they got access to something, they're going to continue to bite.
Exactly right. Or what if they're biting to get out of having to do whatever you're asking them to do? But you think it's for attention, so they try to bite you, and then you turn your back, and you stop asking them to do what
Right.
we're asking them to do, you're giving them what they want again.
Right. And it could be the flip of any, so gotta know what it is before you can start to treat it. So we're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna come back and talk about what the BIP actually is, how people put it together, and why it's so important. I honestly think that if we all understood that when our children are having problems at home and at school, how to use a BIP correctly, our lives would be so much better. So we're gonna have Dr. Tarbox explain all that to us. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have with us right now Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He's the head of research and development at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and he's also the director of the Autism Research Group. He's talking with us about a behavior intervention plan, or a BIP. Some of us call it a BIP. And this is a really effective tool. And it's something I was just saying to Dr. Tarbox, I don't think enough people understand what it is, why they should be demanding it if their child is having a challenging behavior, and how it's going to be useful. So talk to us a little bit about what a BIP is and how you come up with it.
Okay, so a BIP is the more sort of technical way of saying it.
So when I say BIP,
some people say BIP.
When I say BIP, I'm revealing myself as a parent.
Yeah, well,
is what I'm doing.
That's all right. I'll survive.
All right.
Okay, so a BIP is a behavior intervention plan, and it's a plan for how you're going to change the environment so that it changes the child's challenging behavior. Okay. So you're setting up the environment to do two things: decrease the child's challenging behavior and increase an alternative behavior that serves the same function as the challenging behavior. Okay? So the assumption behind a BIP is that there's something the child wants that he or she is getting by doing that challenging behavior. So in a BIP, we're going to make sure that we give him just as much of that thing that he or she wants or more, but we're only going to give it to them when they're not doing the challenging behavior and when they are doing this other alternative behavior that's more appropriate and more adaptive for them.
Okay.
So that's the starting point, is real simple, black and white. If you do the challenging behavior, you're not going to get what you want. If you do anything else, you are going to get what you want, especially if you do some other particular replacement behavior.
Okay, so let's put this in an example. Okay. Let's say that the child is biting.
Okay.
So the first thing that we do is do the functional behavior assessment, and we figure out why the child is biting. There's some sort of paycheck for it. What would you like the paycheck to be? We're going to make one up.
Okay, let's say it's escape from... we should do like a home example, right?
Okay.
So maybe the kid doesn't want to clean up their toys or something like that.
So mom goes in and says, clean up your toys, and he immediately bites her. And what's been happening is that mom then screams and freaks out, runs out of the room and is yelling and gets dad to come in. Dad comes in and talks to him and says, no more biting. But in the meantime...
he's not having to clean up his toys.
He didn't have to clean up his toys for that amount of time.
Right, exactly.
Okay, we want to change this behavior because the biting needs to stop happening. So we know what the function of the behavior is. It's avoiding cleaning up the toys. So we need to create a behavior intervention plan that circumvents this. So what are the steps? You said that we have to have something that, some sort of a reinforcement, because we want to give them a different behavior.
Right, different behavior that's more adaptive or more, allows the child to be more successful and more independent in life without having to bite people, okay? And remember, we still want to give the kid what he wants. We're not saying he can't have what he wants. We're still going to give it to him, but not when he's biting, okay?
In a functional way.
In a functional way. So what he wants is, in this case, is to not have to clean up his toys, right? Or maybe to get some help cleaning up his toys. Or maybe to get, you know, to be able to wait one more minute before having to clean up his toys, okay? So there's ways that we could teach replacement behaviors that could get him all of those other alternative reinforcers. So for example, you could teach the child to ask for help. Help, please. And if the child, so you say, okay, bud, you know, time to clean up your toys. If he says, help, please, then you help him clean up the toys. Right?
And it could be vocal help, please, or it could be a sign for help, please, or holding up a card saying help, please.
It could be a PEX book where he hands over a card. It could be a voice output communication device where he presses a button that says help, and the device vocalizes help, please. Okay, but no matter what the particular behavior is or method of communication, every time they do it, you got to help him. Okay? And so now the kid's still getting what he wants, but he's getting it when he does something appropriate rather than biting. Okay, so if he says help please or touches the button, whatever it is, then you help him clean up the toys. You could also have a more general thing that just says break please. Okay, and again, that could be sign language, it could be, you know, PEX, whatever. And anytime the child requests break please, you give him a 30-second or 1-minute delay to before you make him do the thing that you asked him to do.
Which is what they were getting from the bite.
Right, exactly.
It was only like a 1-minute delay anyway, but it was worthwhile enough that they continued to bite.
Right, exactly.
So we're going to give them a different kind of break. They just have to request it.
Yeah, exactly. And, and then you know, if they do the challenging behavior, in this case biting, then you don't give them the break. So if you ask him to clean up his toys and he tries to bite you, you just keep asking him to clean up his toys, and you don't do it for him, and you don't walk away.
Right.
I mean, you keep yourself safe. You don't have to just let him bite you, obviously. But the same amount of demands that you were giving before have to continue to be in place until the challenging behavior is not occurring.
Right.
Then the kid can have a break.
Okay, so this is, but knowing what to do at each step, and that's not the only thing. We want the replacement behavior, but there's other parts of the behavior intervention plan as well. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, so another thing, just another sort of general principle of behavior intervention plans is give the kid lots of what he wants. Okay, so if in this case what he wants or the function of the behavior is escape from tasks. Okay, so give the kid lots of what he wants before he starts having the challenging behavior. Okay. So if you know that asking him to do stuff that he doesn't like to do is likely to evoke the biting, then don't ask him to do as much stuff at first, right? Okay. Or give frequent breaks before the kid starts to get upset, okay? Okay. So a lot of kids, for example, will, you know, let's say they're doing a math worksheet that has 20 problems on it. They'll do the first few problems, but if you keep making them do work forever without any reinforcement, at some point they're getting sick of it and they're getting frustrated, and then they'll have the challenging behavior. They'll try to bite somebody, and then in the past they would have gotten an escape, right? Or they would have got a break. Instead, just have the kid do a few problems and give them a break right away when there's no problem, right? Don't wait for there to be a problem. Right. Before the problem happens, say, "Oh, you're doing great. Let's take a break," and put the work away and just have some fun.
Okay, and then you can come back to it. We're not saying we're not going to do all the programs, but you got to do it in a way that you don't get to the tantrum. Right. So less demands or demands spaced out.
Yeah, the way to think of it is just more reinforcement in general. So if the reinforcement that child wants is a break, that means more breaks. Okay. If it's attention, if the kid's you know, setting the couch on fire to get attention from you, make sure you give the kid way more attention, but when they're not doing the challenging behavior. So before the kid gets frustrated and bites you, sit them down and play with them for a minute or whatever. You know, set a timer. Every 5 minutes, stop whatever you're doing and give 30 seconds of high quality attention. Hugs, tickles, whatever, and then go back to what you're doing. Okay.
So I want to take another break, but I want to come back and talk about, there are things that you know work because you're a researcher and you've been in this field for a long time. But there are a lot of parents that are out there and there are a lot of teachers that are out there that they're just guessing what works. Right. And sometimes that's effective. and you go, woohoo, I'm so creative, but a lot of time is wasted in guessing at what has actually been shown to be effective when this certain behavior has come up.
Right.
So we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time, and Dr. Tarbox has been a critical part of something that helps us to not have to reinvent the wheel, and he's going to talk to us about that when we come back after these messages. Another parent wants to know, how do I find out that one thing that my kid is really good at?
Now, when they get older, they're going to kind of divide into two groups. You're going to have the kids that become verbal, and then you're going to have the kids that are nonverbal, got many more problems. Maybe they still have epilepsy or some other problem. And they kind of need different services. And the ones that get verbal, what we need to be doing with them is develop the area of strength. And that area of strength often will show up around 3rd or 4th grade, sometimes earlier. But my ability in art showed up when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and it was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. Otherwise, it would have just been endless horse heads. You know, Mother would say to me, why don't you draw a picture of a beach or something else? You want to broaden it out. If the kid's fixated on trains, let's teach reading with trains, math with trains. Tap into that fixation, but develop the area of strength. Some kids it's going to be art. Other kids it's going to be mathematics. So you got a 3rd grader who's smart in math, and he wants a 6th grade math book. Give him the 6th grade math book. Don't bore him with the baby stuff. But that kid's going to have trouble with reading, because the common thing is the uneven skills. And then you have the kids that are the history buffs, and these kids are often really good at writing skills. You tend to have uneven skills, but tap into their fixations and use those to motivate, but broaden. If he likes trains, just watching them, well, we're going to take that interest in trains to do some math with it, or maybe read about the history of the railroad. You know, tap into that motivation. One of the things I really want to talk about is we got to stretch these kids. I'm not talking about physically stretching them, mentally stretching them to do new things. I'm seeing too many kids that haven't learned how to shop, how to order food at McDonald's. So you start out, let's say it's ordering food at McDonald's or at Burger King. So you take them up there and they watch you order it. And then eventually you go in when the store's not busy, and they have to go up and order it while you're sitting at the table watching, and then you coach them. And then eventually they can go in the restaurant themselves. I can remember I was scared to go to the lumber yard alone and buy lumber. And Mother made me go. And she knew I could do it. I had bought lumber with her many times. But there's a tendency to want to have somebody else there when they do it, and they've got to learn how to do things alone. And you gradually have got to kind of push it. You've got to stretch them. And I'm seeing too many kids not learning basic skills. Saw a 19-year-old honor student that actually knows how to drive that had never shopped in the grocery store all by herself. That is just ridiculous. You know, you've got to stretch them. You push too hard, they're going to be panic. And the other thing is no surprises. No surprises. I knew all about the ranch long before I went there. I talked to Ann. But if you don't stretch these kids, they don't grow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He's the head of research and development at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and the director of the Autism Research Group, a great organization. And as I always like to say, you have a beautiful mind. It's just a great thing to have you here, to be able to pick that mind, to mine it, if you will, so that we can get those nuggets that help us to be able to get to the progress with the individual who's on the spectrum that we love and want to help. So we've been talking a little bit about, we had a viewer write in about issues that she's having with her son, that he's getting off the school bus and having tantrums. And we fed that into talking about getting a functional behavior assessment, which then will lead to being able to put together a behavior intervention plan, a BIP.
Correct.
So, and how important it is to be working with experts. And because you want to do things that are scientifically based. You don't want to be just throwing darts and not knowing where they're going. But you were talking about the building a BIP, and how sometimes I would imagine for you, you automatically know what you want to do to have your replacement behavior.
Yes and no. Honestly, even for those of us who've been doing it for a long time, there are so many options that you know. You don't always carefully consider every option before making a choice. Even really experienced clinicians get into habits of sort of having pet procedures that they like a lot, you know, or maybe their mentor used that a lot, and so now they use it a lot. And so people get in sort of ruts, so to speak, of sort of just kind of doing the same thing over and over, even when they know better than that. So it's, you know, it's probably just a matter of there's just so much out there. It's kind of hard to keep in mind to always sort of think through everything first before making a decision.
But you took your team and you developed something, a BIP builder. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because it's absolutely fascinating, and it's something that even parents can use and have the power of all that scientific knowledge in an easy series of drop-down menus.
Great.
It's kind of exciting.
Well, thank you. So yeah, actually where that came from was maybe about, I don't know, 6-8 years ago, me and some folks on my team wanted to create some resources to support CARS supervisors in really writing top quality behavior intervention plans. So it's something that the supervisors already know how to do. They're BCBAs, they're already trained on how to do it, and yet still, like I was saying before, people sort of fall into patterns and fall into routines. And what we found was people hadn't always sort of thought through all the different options before making a choice of which procedure to use for each individual kid. So what we decided to do was make flowcharts just on paper that sort of asked a series of questions about what the problem behavior was like and what type of procedure you might like to use. And based on how you answer the questions, the flowchart would lead you towards different particular procedures that had been proven to work by research. Okay, and so we made the flowcharts, and then and we liked them. They worked pretty well. And then of course, you know, everything's becoming web-based now. So we thought, well, all right, might as well put it on the web. That'll make it even easier, right? And more interactive. And so we had the programmer guys here create it into a web-based form where basically you start by entering in the function of your child's challenging behavior, so attention, escape, automatic reinforcement, or tangible. There are other functions that are applicable to maybe 5 or 10% of behaviors. We'll add those eventually. They're not there yet.
Okay.
And so first you choose one of those 4 functions. You specify what the behavior is: hitting, kicking, biting, pinching, tantrums, self-injurious behavior, running away, you name it.
That list is amazing, by the way.
Well, it goes a lot longer.
It's crazy. I know. I've been on that drop-down menu and seen, and it's sobering.
It's ridiculous.
It's sobering.
So you pick your challenging behavior, then the computer starts to ask you questions of what procedure you might want to use based on the specific function of your child's challenging behavior. And what it does is it tells you the name of the procedure, and then it gives you a description in what we tried to keep semi-lay terms, I think, kind of, you know, understandable, user-friendly terms, a description of what the procedure looks like, and then it asks you, do you want to include this in your behavior intervention plan or not? And you either say yes or no. Then it goes down to another procedure and another, and essentially it's like a checklist with the name of the procedure and a description of every procedure, and you choose which ones you want and which ones you don't. And depending on how you answer the questions about whether the behavior is dangerous or you know, raises potential risk to the child or others, it'll give different choices, you know, based on how dangerous the behavior is, things like that. And based on how you answer yes or no to all these questions, it automatically populates a behavior intervention plan report at the end, and then you go in and it's all editable. And so if you decided that you wanted a procedure and then upon reading it again you realize, you know what, I chose too many procedures, these aren't all necessary, I'll just keep 1 or 2, you can delete the ones you don't want. If you realize, wait a minute, I forgot my favorite procedure, I want to add that in there, you can add it later on. All of it's editable, it's all text boxes that you can customize, because of course BIPs are supposed to be customized to your individual child and their particular behavior. So it's not a cookie cutter, you know, cookbook thing at all. It just gives you a lot of resources basically to then customize for the child.
It's amazing. It's a roadmap to success is what it is. That is what it is. And it puts power in your hands. The power of all the knowledge that's been done research-wise about circumventing this challenging behavior. And you don't have to go to the library and get 17 books and cart them home and read them until you're exhausted and can't do something else. It puts that power in your hands and makes it very immediate. I love that you were trying to make BIPs more effective, and what you did was make them more efficient, and you also put that information into people's hands in an easy format, so you as a parent can sit down with your team at school with the computer open and go through. I've been a parent who sat at a meeting that lasted 3 days, 3 different times that we had to meet with 12 people to write a BIP for my son.
Right.
And I can do it now in a very short period of time, less than an hour. And that's me reading through and having to go, okay, I'm not sure I understand this, and asking a question. That takes me an hour.
Right.
If you know the function of the behavior. So amazing. And that's available to people. It's called the Skills Behavior Intervention Plan Builder. It's part of Skills. So you can go to Skills for Autism, and I encourage you to look at all of Skills together, do a 14-day free trial. But I understand, I'm pretty sure that the BIP Builder is available separately.
That's correct,
If you go to skillsbipbuilder.com, and you can get just
website,
that.
but
I'm pretty sure that that's what it is.
If they just do a Google search for Skills BIP Builder, I'm sure they'll find it. But yeah, it's available separately. And you know, it's important to point out too that it's not a substitute for having someone who's an expert at designing a behavior intervention plan, right? Like, it's a great resource for parents, but we don't say that parents, you have no training and you should just go do it. No, you know, it's a resource. Use it and look at it and read through it, and it will educate you, it will train you. But you still want to have someone who's an expert in designing function-based behavior intervention plans to use that tool with you, and so that it's not just for everyone with no training.
And I appreciate you saying that. And I will tell you quite honestly that one of the ways that I used it as a parent recently was the school gave me a BIP that they were talking about using for my son. And what I did was plug the function in and went down and saw that some of what they were saying I did not agree with, because it wasn't shown to be effective. It wasn't a reasonable thing to do for that particular behavior. I went back in and said, hey, you know, I would rather you use this than this, and it changed everything. And I was able to work with them to get something that was effective. So it is also a way for us as parents to understand what they're saying and check it and say, yeah, that's science-based. This isn't.
Yeah, and you know, there's nothing, as you've said, you know, daily on your show, there's nothing you can do better for yourself as a parent than to educate yourself. It's power.
My goodness. It's
so yeah, the
empowering.
BIP Builder can definitely help with that.
And use it with your ABA providers. So I'm going to go back to our question that we had from our viewer about this tantrum that her son is having coming off the school bus, and suggest that she talk to a BCBA to get an FBA done.
Absolutely.
And then maybe sit down with that professional and come up with a BIP that deals with the behavior as it's happening getting off the school bus at home, but also address that at the school.
Absolutely.
So that you can turn these behaviors around. It's all too easy to get caught up in, you're in a spiral right now where you're exhausted.
Right.
And this behavior continues to happen, and you feel like, I don't know what we're ever going to do for it to stop.
Right.
This is a way that you could get the behavior to be stopping at school and to be stopping at home.
That's right.
And scientifically, effective.
Yes, and it's all too common for parents and for teachers and medical doctors and everybody to just kind of get used to the idea that if you're a child on the spectrum, that you're going to misbehave.
Right.
And the fact is that's not part of the diagnosis. Autism does not cause misbehavior, and challenging behavior is treatable. And there's a whole science for the last 50, 60 years on how to do it. It's not a mystery. It just requires someone who has the specific training on how to do it.
Yeah. So it will be a little bit of work for you in the beginning to get these things lined up, but it really life-changing. Life-changing. We want to encourage you to look into that. Please write us back and let us know what happens, okay? I'm going to press on with some other questions because I've got a lot we want to get through.
Great.
Okay. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Tarbox. My son is 4 and doesn't seem to be making progress socially or conversationally. He's now in a specialized preschool with 6 kids. 2 of those kids are not on the spectrum, but seem to just play together only. He has 1 ESE teacher and a behavior analyst teacher in class at all times. They don't do one-on-one, but most days it's 2 kids with 1 teacher. He labels, requests, comments, and asks some simple questions. He seems very prompt dependent at home since beginning in his program since August. When he was in a typical preschool, he was more independent, but his language has gotten better since he's been in the specialized preschool.
Okay.
She says, I had his OT visit him on Monday, and she felt his current environment is too restrictive. She said he was initiating wants and needs, trying to get kids to play and following directions well, but didn't get to make his own choices. Today, his speech therapist went, and she felt he needs lots of prompts and he should continue to be there. she did continue to say, my question is, why is he so inconsistent? She's depressed that he's not getting better. He was approved for 15 hours only because there were no aggressive behaviors. So, and I hope that that is tied to the other one. I don't absolutely know that because that was in a separate thing. So, let's address the first part of it.
Okay.
She's having to make a decision.
Child's 4, is that correct?
The child is 4, was in a different preschool, and seemed to be more independent, but he's now in the other school, he's getting more language.
Right.
Is there a way that she got 2 different recommendations from the OT and the speech therapist? What can she be doing to maximize progress?
Right, okay. So yeah, it's a tough one, and without knowing more details about the individual child, but one thing that I would start with is getting the team together, or maybe even just starting with the teacher, whoever's in charge of the child's case, and sitting down and looking at the IEP and saying, what are the specific goals that we're working on, and what are the specific activities that are happening in the classroom that are supposed to contribute to each one of those goals. So if one of the goals is more spontaneous social language, let's say, like making initiations to peers, I would want to know specifically what is happening in the classroom that's going to encourage that's going to teach those skills. What prompts are they using, and what's their plan for fading out the prompts so that the child's language maintains without help and without assistance. And I would want to know, it sounds kind of obsessive and crazy, but I would want to know every single goal in the IEP and every single procedure, and I would want a clear description. Like, so this is going to happen at least 30 minutes a day, and so aide is going to do it, and here are the 3 areas in the classroom they're going to work on it, and we're going to have at least 2 other peers that are available for interact. They need to have a clear, concise, strategic description of how progress is going to be made. I mean, that's what a good quality ABA program looks like, is very clear plan for how every single skill is going to be taught and how every goal is going to be met. Doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect, but they need to have a clear plan. And usually in special education classrooms, it's not that thought out. It's kind of more, let's throw him in there and see how he does. And so that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, I love that answer. And you know who else would love that answer is Dr. Mike Dorsey. Dr. Mike Dorsey, who's been on the show a couple of times, who is one of the leading experts in placement. Which placement is correct for a student? He gets called in as an expert to testify in court cases all the time for both parents and teachers. And one of the things he has said is when you're having these kinds of difficulties, do exactly what you asked for. Ask for that breakdown. He even says make them do it by 20-minute intervals.
Right, makes sense,
which goals are you working on, and how are you making it happen? And if they can't get you that piece of paper within a 24-hour window, then they probably aren't doing it.
Right, absolutely.
And that's key. And by asking them to do it, they're going to have to scurry. Make sure you ask for it in writing. They're going to have to scurry if they don't already have it together, but they will put it together for you. It might take them a week to put it together, but you know what will happen? Your child's program will improve, because then they'll already have the roadmap, and at least to some degree they'll start following it. So I absolutely love that answer. Okay, and then do us a favor and write back and let us know, what's happening with that. Okay, I want to go back to a question that was sent in last week. I'm scrolling up to it specifically for you, and I saved it. Hi, Dr. Tarbucks. My son is 3.5. He has been with CARD since October for 40 hours. I've been dealing with the school district in regards to placement. A bunch of you know what, she says. Anyhow, I got to observe the class and speech and OT last week. I could see where my child might, and I say might, benefit from what they're teaching. My main focus is ABA, but I am concerned that ABA doesn't teach him the things that the school is teaching. And I will say not yet, maybe. But she says, so yet he is learning a lot from CARD, but yet he is not learning the other a lot. Please explain to me how ABA will teach him all the things he will need to know when the time comes to place him in school.
Right.
Because like you said, these are his Olympic training years.
All right.
And I really want to put him in school for, and then she goes on to say, I really want to put him in school for 15 hours and get him 40 hours so that he can thrive.
Great. That is great.
And she says, I'm desperate to help my child. Also, he has no interest in others. Will that come, or will kids on the spectrum learn everything but remain unsocial? And she says, love you guys. We love you back.
All right.
So a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Okay, first of all, 40 hours a week, congratulations. You're getting the best possible treatment at the right age that's proven to work. That's the best thing you can do for your kid.
And from the right provider, I'll say that.
And so, don't let go of those hours. That's the best thing you can do. Make time for those hours. Olympic training. She's got the metaphor.
She's got it.
Okay. Now, in addition to those 40 hours, it's a great idea to start integrating your child into more mainstream settings and other settings with other children. And that can either be at school, it could be during play dates, it could be preschool. There's a lot of different options for that. The main thing to consider is what particular goals is my child going to be working on in those other settings, and what particular prerequisite skills are needed for those goals, and does my child have them? And how do you know my child has them?
Okay.
So a good ABA provider should be able to say X, Y, and Z to all those questions, no problem, and even show you the data. So things like imitation. If your child can't imitate yet, it's not going to be very useful to hang out with a bunch of other people, because that's the primary way that you learn in school with peers or on the playground with peers, is through imitation. So if you can't see a peer and imitate what they do, you're not ready to learn from your peers yet. Okay. Another thing is just basic compliance and instruction following. If your child's still having a real tough time with that stuff, then putting them in a group setting is not going to be that helpful yet, because they're not even quite ready. They're still having challenges just even doing what the teacher or the therapist says. But once you get those basic foundational skills in place, and maybe your child already has them, it's possible, then he or she may well be ready to start learning in more group settings or more mainstream or classroom settings. And so then, again, though, it has to be strategic, and there has to be a reason for it. The usual routine when you ask, and I'm sure you've gone through this, the usual routine when you ask your school district for a placement is they give you whatever placement is convenient for them. And of course, they do try to think, to the best of their ability, what's going to be good for your child. Right. But they can't create a new classroom for every child, right? They have to put you where they have space. And so you're going to have to ask specifically, what about this placement is right for my child for filling the particular goals on my child's IEP or IFSP or whatever your treatment plan is. And so, that's the starting point. Now, another big question that she had was, is ABA going to teach some of these other skills that I know they're working on in the classroom?
Right.
Now, I'm not sure exactly what they're working on in the classroom in your child's case, but yes, ABA has been shown to be effective in teaching basically anything that a child with autism needs to know, needs to learn how to do.
Right.
Now, different funding agencies might have restrictions on what they will fund treatment to teach. So if you're getting 40 hours from an insurance carrier, the insurance is only required to pay for teaching skills that are deemed to be medically necessary. And so we haven't seen how that's going to play out yet. The next 3 to 5 years is going to tell us the future, right? But for now, as far as I know, insurance companies are still being pretty good about letting the ABA provider specify the goals, what they need to teach, and why. But for example, they're not going to teach academics. Like, insurance companies are very clear about, we don't need to provide education. And that's true. They don't need to provide education. That's the school's job. So if you're talking things like academics, like reading, writing, math, it's going to be challenging to make a case for medical necessity for those skills.
Okay.
Although, of course, if you can't read or write or communicate, how are you supposed to get by in life? So there's a lot of gray area there. It's not black and white.
It's still being determined. That's still shaking down, as they say.
Right, absolutely.
How that works.
But maybe another skill that she's referring to is things like that are more social in nature, right?
Right.
I know she was concerned that her son doesn't seem interested in other kids yet.
Right.
First of all, that's very normal at this age, and your kid has gotten some good intervention so far, but that's still early on, right?
Yes.
And yes, interest in others can absolutely be developed, and the answer to that question is would be an hour in itself, but the short answer is lots and lots of practice for learning why it's actually fun to interact with other people. And so there has to be a payoff. There has to be a reward, right?
Okay.
And at first it might be contrived reinforcement, like you get your favorite teddy bear or something if you play with your friend. But eventually we do indeed teach children to actually learn to get satisfaction out of the social interaction itself. It might take literally a year or too, to see a major change in that, but it does happen.
It does happen. So definitely know that. I also want to say too that when Dr. Grandpichet was with us yesterday, one of the things that she was talking about, since you're a card parent, is that you can ask your supervisor to ask for corporate hours for people to consult on your case.
That's
if
correct.
you want, so if you want somebody else to look at it, I know she was saying that yesterday, ask your supervisor, say, I would like some corporate hours for some help with this if you want further, because, that's one of the benefits of being a card parent.
That's right.
Okay.
So someone on my team can specifically consult on the case, and there's multiple other corporate departments for quality assurance and things like that.
So there you go. Very exciting thing. Okay, we are literally like, what do we have, Emily? A minute? Okay, we got about a minute, but let's see if we can. My son used to copy kids and movements. Now he is anxious and avoids them in public. I'm worried he is regressing. What are your thoughts? He's 4, and thanks for your help.
Not
You
enough
got 2 minutes.
information there. I have 2 minutes. Okay, not enough information there. Used to copy kids and movements, but now is anxious and avoids other people?
In public.
Okay.
And she's worried about regression.
Yeah.
So maybe let's just deal with regression instead of the specific. Anytime you're worried about regression, what we don't know whether they're getting ABA.
Right.
Because my first thing is, if you have an ABA provider, if you're seeing regression, I would immediately talk to your supervisor.
Absolutely, yeah. And same thing if your child's in a public school classroom. If you are suspecting regression, immediately talk to your child's teacher and maybe call in an emergency IEP meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so regression, I'm not sure that I'm aware of having anxiety around social situations, of that being connected to regression at all. And usually with regressive autism, what we see is the child's developing typically until age 18 months or so, and then they start to lose language and lose skills.
Right.
So I don't know if the child's within that age range. If they're not, it wouldn't be regression per se, regressive autism, but it could be not enough practice with skills will mean you lose those skills. Just like when we learn a foreign language, if we don't use it, we lose it.
I also think too, and we're really out of time, but when you hit 4, the social game gets upped more, and that might be why they're just having difficulty and maybe need more support there. But we're gonna have to table that conversation to continue for next week, which we will. But I thank you so much for being here.
It's always
a pleasure to have you here. We have to say goodbye to you, but don't forget to be watching. We're gonna be posting tomorrow on being with Dr. Temple Grandin, and then on Saturday, if you're gonna be at the Los Angeles Walk, make sure you come and see us at the booth and get on camera with us. That will be a very fun thing to do. We're done for this week, but next week we're going to close out this Autism Month with a bang. So don't miss it. But please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.